All right, sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Today I am lucky and honored to have as a guest the creator of much that is good in the world. He studied deeply the ancient texts, compiled their truth into one vessel, and came out syncretic and with profound understandings to share with the world, lecturing and sharing wisdom all over the world in his Universal Truth School, Santos. Bonacci, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you very much.
It's so awesome to get you on the show. I've been wanting to do that for a really long time, and I usually start with a pointless question of the episode, which is not always as pointless as it might seem. But my pointless question of the episode today for you is, what does spring feel like for you?
Spring has a feeling. It's my favorite month. It has a feeling of a fresh start, renewal. It just energizes me. There's nothing like spring. You know, spring is like being reborn. You actually do. It's probably why Easter is celebrated in the spring in Aries. Well, it's not probably. It is why, because it is the start of the year, and you feel it. You actually do feel like you've started something. It's regenerative for me.
Absolutely. Agreed. It feels really nice. It's like we come out of this long slumber to awaken to sort of like warm, fresh feelings.
Yes.
So then welcome to spring. So that's awesome. This is your favorite time of the year. Does spring feel different for you this year than it normally does?
Yeah, it does, because I'm in Mexico. It's like summer here, but I was in Oregon and California before I came, and that was a very, very warmish last part of winter, and there were blossoms everywhere. So it was more wintry when I was in the States last month.
Okay. Yeah, I got spring feelings like a little bit earlier than I usually do this year. And then now that it's fully spring, it feels kind of, I think mostly probably because of all of this pandemic scare that's going on, it feels like a little dampened. And that is an interesting feeling to notice in people. And where I'm at, people actually don't seem too scared or too kind of worried. Like you can tell people are aware of what's happening, allegedly, but people are still out walking their dogs. Kids are still out playing where I'm at. In some places I've heard people won't even let their children outside, which I don't really understand, but that's their choice. But so things feel like a little bit different in that sense as well. And I wonder what your take is on all of that. And does that seem to be affecting people around you where you are? And have you seen it? And
not in Mexico. The president came out the other day and said that they won't be doing any of this locking down and
oh wow,
and nonsense. I think he's pretty much calling it out for nonsense and
wow,
overstepping governmental bounds. You know, I mean, he's pretty much calling it a nuisance, and people are overreacting. That's what I've been told. So I haven't heard that myself, but nothing's happening here. There are a few places shutting down. Yes, they have to shut down. I don't know, public places like libraries and things like that. But apart from that, everyone's working.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's really cool. I almost want to come down there then and do that instead of this, because it's pretty interesting to see, you know, the extent to where they're going. And for a while, everyone was kind of saying like martial law, martial law, martial law, and I kept saying, well, it's not martial law just because you kind of have these curfews and things, and it's not martial law. And now California's governor has come out and said they might declare martial law. So I'm like, oh, I guess they might go for martial law.
Are you in California?
No, I'm luckily in Colorado, which is not that lucky because it still seems to be one of the states that kind of toes the agendas as they roll out more quickly, but it's not as quick as it seems like California and New York are always right at the heel there.
That's right. They are. Bookends of what goes on in between. East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they've got that down. And then yesterday I was noticing some people had brought up that quarantine means 40 days, and 40 is this sort of number of cyclical, you know, completion almost. And And then I was noticing yesterday that it was also the March 22nd is 322 is like the skull and bones number that they have on their sort of logo or whatever. And then also on that day, 40 years ago, yesterday, 40 years ago, the Georgia Guidestones were unveiled. And they sort of tie into what seems to be this whole agenda as well. And so it was like this 40-year cycle coming to a 40-year point at least. And then at the same time, we're all saying and thinking and putting emotion into this idea of quarantine, which is 40, also related to 40. And I was sort of trying to figure out if they planned it that way, and they probably did because they like to do those things, it seems like.
Well, it's interesting because the Latin festival Quaresima, yeah, comes from quarantine. It's 40 days. It's the days of Lent. That's what you call Lent in the English language, which comes from lengthening, because around Pisces, before the crossing of Easter, the sun on the ecliptic, the sun is lengthening the days. So, but they are 40 days because between the cross-quarter days, there's 40 days between all the cross-quarter days and the tropical points. So it's really 45, but they round it off to 40. So there's a quarantine happening virtually from equinox to cross-quarter day, from cross-quarter day to solstice, all the way through the year. But the true one is the lengthening one, the one when the sun is waxing from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer, but in particular, the Quaresima, the 40 days, is before the equinox. And it's very, very interesting to me how they do this all the time. They overlap something which has to do with their liturgical year, which they have inverted into a Luciferic satanic evil concept where they practice their evil death rituals over the true Christian and the true liturgical meaning of the sun on the ecliptic. So the true meaning would be that the sun is lengthening, hence people will respect those 40 days because they know that once the sun hits the equinox and Easter is celebrated, then you don't have to celebrate the Quaresima anymore because now the days are longer and the nights are shorter after the equinox. So it was all about living in hope and urging and encouraging the sun on the ecliptic to bring back the longer days, to bring back the summer and the food so we can eat and have a harvest, etc. So this quarantine, whether it'll be for 40 days or more or whatever, it's definitely on their side, the controller's side, it is a satanic ritual for sure.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me because I know they like to invert things, and I know they like to take what's sort of good and true and beautiful and make it into something that is ugly and twisted and serves their sort of sick agenda. So that's fascinating to hear about. And so it would seem then that the 40 days or however long they're trying to make us hopeless and, terrified and stuck, in separation from each other. It's like they're really trying to not only use that energy maybe from us, but also stop us from putting sort of our good energy and like coming in sort of connection with the spring and the rebirth and that energy. And it's like a double. I mean, it's probably more than a double. It seems like they always have like 6 levels of these things too, where it's not just attacking us on this one way. It's like all of these ways are all like woven into this kind of, I don't want to say masterful because I don't like it. But I mean, it is kind of masterful in a way, the way that they can operate on these long scales and multiple levels at once.
Yes, it is. It's masterful. they've always got the same agenda: more control, keep people sick with vaccinations, keep them in debt with more taxes, more pressure, screw in the screws more and more and more and more. So whatever they do, it will always be for this purpose, because they need people. They are power mongers.
Yeah.
They're power hungry. So they need armies of slaves to carry out all the things that they do, you know. So
Yeah.
and all they know that there's always willing dupes that will go along with their lies, because you see they have authority.
Yeah.
So they're trained from school that authority is truth, not truth is authority.
Mm.
So they're always going to be going along because the good old government has always got their back, you know. So
Yeah.
they just and they don't want to upset the community, you know. We're good social contributors, and we'll do whatever the government tells us to do, right? So it's like the sheep going over the precipice. They're just all leading each other to their own destruction. The herd
Yes.
mind.
And it's really, really sad. And I know, it's really easy to get frustrated with people who haven't seen through it yet. And people who are supporting and cheering on things like vaccination. And especially now we've had hints and mentions of mandatory forced vaccination coming about in the United States. And we haven't gotten any direct sort of order yet. But we have, some documents that mention it, and just those hints, like I said. And we have people who are already, cheering that on and saying like, yeah, we should do this. If people can't, choose to do it themselves, then we have to force them to. And so this is right. And it's like, it's hard to not be mad at people who are saying that, because you're like, well, you're going to harm me now. You're going to support this thing that would harm me. If you want to do it to yourself, I guess I can't stop you. But at the same time, it's hard. Like you're saying, these are like, it's like a herd of sheep being driven over the ledge, and you can't, I have to always come back to this place where I can't really be mad at them, because it's actually very sad that they're stuck in that herd and that they're heading for the edge. And it's even more sad that they could ever be manipulated to a point where they would harm someone else.
Yes, it is. That's what's going on. And you see all these good soldiers doing what they're supposed to do. They're actually poisoning people. In China now, they're just going along the streets and just spraying willy-nilly all over the place. And you see people complaining, and they're just spraying everywhere. You know, it's obvious that I mean, thinking people are going to see that and they're going to wonder, is all of that necessary? And hopefully people will wake up and not be going along with it.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's all we need is enough people to just not go along with it. There's also people who are saying like, let's go out and let's fight. And I'm like, fight who? Who are you? You're not going to find the people who designed all this and fight them. If you're going to fight someone, it's going to be your neighbor who's deluded and, has been lied to. And why would you want to fight that person? That person doesn't know what they're even doing.
Yep.
But yeah, I hope too. I hope people wake up and just don't go along with it. Don't consent and don't go along with it. That'd be awesome.
Yep, that's right. Because in the end, you're exercising your own free will, and no one, not even for the, supposedly for the sake of community. I mean, everyone has common sense. You're never going to put the community at risk if you are a decent individual, which most people are. But they're making people into criminals because they're stepping outdoors, right? And you see people in China getting beat up if they don't have that white. I saw a mother. She was felled over by an overzealous, overexerting dupe. I think it was someone in authority in uniform. He just jumped out of his car and he pushed the mother, and her little baby fell on its head virtually on the concrete and started screaming. He knocked the baby out of the mother's hand, all because she didn't have a mask on her face. So this is how ridiculous. It's the Inquisition, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Listen, let's have a look at the word inquisitions in Wikipedia. I keep telling people when I see people that you have to understand Inquisition.
Inquisition.
All right, let's punch that in. Let's have a look at Inquisition in Wikipedia. This is interesting because the Inquisition is still on. And when I tell people that it is the Inquisition, the only problem on the earth right now is we're under the Inquisition. That's it. And that, and that's because of certain papal bulls that are supposedly they are law. They are universal law in this Roman-ruled and British-run America, Washington, D.C. military world that we live in. Those are the three hotspots of this Inquisition. The Inquisition comes from Rome. So this is how interesting it is here. It tells you, all right, in the third paragraph, right? So you've got three big paragraphs, and in the third paragraph it says this. With the exception of the Papal States, the Inquisition, the institution of the Inquisition was abolished in the early 19th century after the Napoleonic Wars in Europe and the Spanish-American Wars of Independence in the Americas. The institution survived as part of the Roman Curia, but in 1908 it was renamed the Supreme Sacred Congregation of the Holy Office. Jeez, I can't imagine how supreme and sacred this Inquisition is.
Yeah.
That was in 1908, 100 years ago. Then 2 years before I was born, in 1965, it became the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. Please never forget this, and all the listeners, please, please, please pay attention. The Inquisition is still on. Wikipedia has not updated any changes in the name. It's called the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Now, how do you get the doctrine of the faith? Which faith?
Yeah.
And which doctrine and which congregation? This is all blasphemy. This is all a bunch of demonic thugs, pedophiles, herbivores, pedivores, who not only do they rape little children, they actually eat them. These people are eating our children. These are adrenochrome, murderous, soulless, disgusting entities who are actually doing this to us in the Inquisition.
Ugh.
The Holy Inquisition. That's how it starts here. It says, the Inquisition in historical ecclesiastical parlance, also referred to as the Holy Inquisition, was a group of institutions within the Catholic Church whose aim was to combat heresy. Let's combat people who don't wear masks now. That will be really... And whose children run around bare feet and aren't schooled and vaccinated. And so it says the Inquisition started in the 12th century in France to combat religious dissent. Yes, we can't have people having their own religious ideas, perhaps astrology or homeopathy. And in particular, it was aimed at the Cathars and the Waldensians. I've spoken about these guys a lot, the Hussites, the Beguines, and all kinds of people like the Waldenses, the Huguenots, the Socinians, the Bogomils. These were all groups in the so-called Dark Ages that were dissenting, or in other words, they were not of the same mind as the Catholic Church. They were different, and that's their right. And so what they did was they organized against these poor people, big armies against dissidents and heretics. Well, that's what they're doing now. It's the
Yeah.
Inquisition, the same mentality.
Wow. That's fascinating. And do you think that this does this tie in with all of this like ideas of our, law system has been taken over and that it's all maritime law sort of, and that's why they're sort of able to on a spiritual level like pull this off somehow is that they've like tricked us into this system or something. Do you know anything about those things or kind of subscribe to those ideas?
Yeah, well, they lay claim to our souls due to the fact that they have registered our family name and made a trust. So they are acting as trustees. And but really, they're acting as trustees, but they're actually the beneficiaries of that trust. They've turned it around on people, and because people use the family name or the surname, surety name, they are then entering into contract with these people. This is why before any officer of the Inquisition, and by the way, office is a Catholic institution, any office. It's for paying taxes. That's what officers are for. And so officers, officials like policemen and sheriffs, they always need your full name and address, because the address is the address of the office of that name. So you have to, that's why you need a proper address. You can't just have your all caps name without an address. It must be followed by an address with a zip code, and that code belongs to the Vatican. That is the office which you have turned your home into one of the offices, because you are now a what's it called? Oh boy. Now I forget how they've changed. You are a parson. Because you've accepted to be a person, person comes from parson. So what's a parson? Well, let me just get this right for a start.
I only remember the word parson from the Frosty the Snowman song.
All right. A parson, a beneficial member of the clergy, a rector or a vicar. Informal, any member of the clergy, especially a Protestant one. So all these Protestant people, I was a Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, Pentecostals, all of these are Protestants, and they are parsons. Because they have accepted a birth certificate, they now have become persons, which is a corporation or a corpse. So they have become a dead parson, which is a person. A parson is live, is living, if you are a parson. So what they've done is, by making these changes of the words, they're called word marks, like trademarks. What they've done is they've made words that are word marks, and they insert those in their legal documents. And when we accept the full name, in my case, Santo Bonacci, because that is Crown copyrighted, they own it, I'm committing fraud. So they can do whatever they want because I've entered the contract in fraud as they have. It's a fraudulent system, and it's designed to be fraudulent so that anyone who engages in it is immediately engaging in fraud. And this is why the scriptures say, "Get out of her, my people, if you do not want to be sharing in her sins. Get out of Babylon the Great." This system is called Babylon the Great because your registered name it's not a recorded name. If your name is recorded, it's in the book of life because you're recorded as living and not a stillborn. What they do when they get your live born record, they then create a birth certificate. Born record, birth registration. Those are two different creatures, and we think they're the same. The born record, if you are born, you've come from a woman. If you are birthed, you come from a ship. So a birth certificate is the certificate that the doctor in the docks where the ships go has just received some items and gives that to the he gives a list of everything that's on the ship to the docking what do they call them? I'm not doing well with words today.
I don't know either. For some reason, I'm thinking a bosun, but that's not what it is.
No, it's like the dock master. But anyway, that's what you do. And so, when you have a person registered, regis means king. So now that person, that dead corporation, is under the jurisdiction of the king. The king can do whatever he wants to that person. So if you think you're that person and you've shifted over from your live born record, a record is not a registration. It's not belonging to the king. It's for the community to record, to see the records, to know who is on the book of life of the living. Yeah. Because when you die, you get taken off that book, or rather you get put into a book called the mortuary book. And that's mort means death. So you go into the book of death. And when you are registered, that is the book of death.
Wow. From birth, we're recorded as dead and treated as such, I guess.
Yes.
So have you yourself done anything to change that situation, according to them? Have you tried to get your name out of a birth certificate registry or get recorded in a book of life or anything like that? Or do you use a different name or?
No, I've tried to in the early days when I was onto this, but well, I guess it didn't work. So,
yeah.
But there are people who have, and they've done it successfully.
I've heard the same, and one of them is someone I know, pretty well in real life, and so I trust them, and so I feel like it can be done, and I guess there's pretty precarious steps you have to follow, and letters you have to notarize and send to the right people, and all of this, and I don't know all of those things, but I also wonder then, how do you then go like traveling, for example? Like right now you're in Mexico. How would you use your passport to do those things if you've sort of changed all of that status? Do these legal documents still even apply to you?
Well, that's right. Well, this is why I haven't been able to do that. I know some people who have got their diplomatic passports and things like that. So until I learn the process and do it correctly, well, I'll just have to survive as everybody else does.
Right.
When we're under duress, we're under constraint.
Yes.
To use this system because we were born in the system. We were trained in the system, and it's such a thorough and comprehensive system.
Yeah.
That it's almost entangled web, almost impossible for some people to study on their own and fathom, and unravel. It's just some people have done it because they've had help and they've been on that road for so many years, and so they've been successful. But for the average Joe, it's going to be absolutely an intimidating task and take many years, and some people don't even have the time. They're busy working 3 jobs, for instance, and raising a family.
Right. Yeah, it does seem really inaccessible for most people, and I wonder too, I would like to do it just to do it and, to be free and to see how this sort of system works and to see what that changes, if anything. And it'd be a really cool experience and experiment to do. But I also feel like, for me at least, I feel like on my soul level, I'm already free and no one can change that. And I sort of, practice this thing where I rescind any contracts that I've supposedly made, in my heart, and take that back and say, like, you can't, it's not fair if you trick me into something without my full knowledge, and I didn't have full knowledge. And so this contract that you think you have is void as far as I'm concerned. And do you think there's anything to that sort of spiritual level of just knowing that you're not a part of that system and kind of proclaiming that and rescinding agreement that you may have given?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, that's what you should do. That's how to do it. Yeah, write your own contracts and tell them what your orders are, because you are living, and they are living, and no living man has the right to subject another one to slavery and to order them around. No human can do that to another human. They can only do it if you let them have that authority.
Yes, because that's what I'm thinking too, like in the moment itself. And I think that's why they go to these great lengths to, for example, convince us that there's a, virus spreading around the world, killing everyone, or that, whatever, toilet paper is never going to exist again, or whatever these things are, so that we at some level are agreeing to whatever it is they say, like we were talking about earlier, so that we're just sheep being herded along because they have to convince us to agree with them and to go along with it. So if we just don't, that's pretty powerful, actually.
Yep, that's right. That's how it works. So once you commit fraud of using their name, they can do anything, because you've actually committed fraud. You don't know who you are. You don't know that you are a living being composed of various elements. You think you are a body. Therefore, they will keep that as their stock, the body, because it comes with the certificate that they are the officers and the caretakers of. They are the what's known as your guardians, because you're wards of the state. That's why we're born in wards, in hospital wards, because that's where the wardens keep their prisoners, and that's where little children who are lost at sea, and they come in as shipping goods. Once they get a certificate, that certificate is basically a stock and a security on the stock market.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a slave market. It's people trafficking. The Pope is the number one people trafficker.
And do you think that a lot of these people, clearly the Pope knows what's going on, I would think, but do you think that there's many people who even actually know that this is the system, the people who are kind of working actively for the system, like, I don't know, a random politician, let's say, do you think that they even have any idea that this is the system, or do you think they're just kind of, moving along like every other sheep, and they're getting some benefits, some extra benefits over the other sheep by playing this role, and so they just started doing it blindly?
I'm not sure. I'm sure that one thing is true, that only the ones that need to know. So they know who needs to know, and they know who's not to be trusted. Honest people cannot be trusted. They will tell honest people how the system really works. They will only do it with degenerate, deviant-hearted criminal types, which they know by sight. It's not a hard thing to tell. Criminals are criminals. They make themselves felt. You can feel their energy. And once they get a feeling for the creepiness inside, that these people will do anything, they'll sell their mothers, they'll rape their mothers, they will murder their children, they will murder other people's children. Once they get a sense that people will do that, they're in this club, the murdering club.
Yuck. It's so disgusting. Yeah. And then, what was I going to ask next? I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, just that they've, clearly, just like we were talking about with the, with this alleged pandemic and whatever. It's like they clearly had this system just mapped out with a fine detail a long time ago. And, and people are, having their revolutions or, even coming to entirely new, so not actually, but supposedly new continents and trying to start again, or all of these situations over so many thousands of years where you'd think people are trying to be free or live as they're truly meant to be, perhaps. And still these people have a plan for that too. And it's like, do you see any sort of end or break in their domination of this plane and their plans sort of failing at any point? Or what do you think? Where do you think all of that's sort of heading?
Well, I have a motto for that. Evil cannot prevail, it can only fail. So it's a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, and it depends on us and our awakening. This is why I spend a lot of my days trying to awaken people, trying to give them gems of truth which might spark them off on a path to awaken something in them. So everybody goes, bing, I know what I have to do. I'm a teacher, or I'm a healer, or I'm a motivator, I'm a warrior, I'm a truther, I'm a researcher. We have to know our role. I know my role, and I've done it, and I'm doing it, and I will not stop doing it until the true light comes back on this plane, because I know the potential I have, and I know the potential that others have, and we're not living it. No. None of us are living. I'm not living my potential. I'm like a billionth of my potential, and I don't like that. I don't like being limited, restricted, or conditioned. I don't want any of that. And I will know the truth that will set me free. And that's the truth that I'm teaching, because it is the truth. Truth doesn't come from me. Truth comes from itself.
Yes.
I'm just telling it forth. It stands on its own merits. If it's the truth, it's spoken forth, and people will recognize it. The true ones will recognize it. The false ones won't. Yeah. They will laugh. They'll try and point and poke holes at it. They will try and decry it. They will try and ridicule it, because they are cowards. They sit there and they have nothing at all to give but lies, and they are cowards. And you'll be surprised how many cowards and degenerates have been born on this plane. And this is what the world is churning out in their institutions of education, churches. They are churning out degenerates. They're not ascending anybody. They're not causing people to really improve. Even when they put them in jail, they call them correctional services. When I was put in jail, that was twice for doing this work. I went to a correctional centre because I needed to be corrected.
Yeah.
and in jail, I met people who were put there because they had cures for cancer. I met a man who was in jail at least a year, and he didn't know how long he was going to be in there for, because he cured patients by treating them with the moon astrologically. Wow. For their cancer, and he healed them, he cured them. Wow. See, that's the sort of people I met in jail. I didn't meet a lot of hardened evil criminals. I met a lot of poor lost souls who didn't know how they got themselves in there, because they had speeding fines, or someone was hitting them and they defended themselves, and because of that they were accused and prosecuted and sentenced to jail because of defending themselves and stuff like that. More than half of the people there were, in my opinion, should not have been there. And they call those correctional services. People are not being corrected.
No.
Every day I woke up in jail, and someone would be walking around with black eyes, a new guy. There was always someone who got picked on, or someone who got into trouble and got killed. There was always someone getting killed. There were lockdowns all the time because some guy just committed suicide, some guy got bashed to death. And these guys don't even know how they got in there. You know, they haven't got intent and criminal hearts.
Yeah.
It's because of using that name. So are they ascending people? Are they helping anybody? No, they're not helping anybody. They're helping themselves, because when you put someone in jail, they tell you it costs, $100 a day to keep someone in jail. Oh, it's costing us so much tax money, the taxpayers. That's a lie, because what they do is they hypothecate their security, their birth certificate bond, on the stock market and make millions. So every day I was in jail, I was making millions for the lawyers who were laughing, drinking champagne and cocktails and caviar at my expense, because their accounts swell up the more people they have in the prisons, because now they've got more securities and more bonds that they can trade on to the Chinese and to the Russians and anyone who buys them all around the world on the stock market. So they make investment bonds, they make insurance bonds, they make bid bonds, they make betting bonds, and this is how what they call the futures market and securities, and because we've been securitized by our surety bond, our sure name, our surname. It's a surety.
Interesting. I never knew that that's what futures and securities were, and that's even more disgusting. It's just like another aspect of the human trafficking that they're doing.
It is.
Right, and they're literally doing that on every level.
Yeah, it is only human trafficking. There's no other way of. It's the Inquisition.
Yeah.
Human trafficking and the Inquisition are in full force. Look around today, it's just called coronavirus. And corona is just another way of saying coroner. And the coroner is the guy who examines dead bodies. And his name is based on Kronos, the Grim Reaper, Satan, the god of this world, old man time, who knocks on your door, the Grim Reaper, the night before he takes you away. So it's the coronavirus. Time's up. Time's up. Chronology. It's about time, and they're telling you that the boss of the system is coming for your body because we signed up.
Do you think that if Satan is the god of this world, and like the Gnostics sort of said that the god of this world is actually the evil god, but then that also is the creator god, do you think that Satan created people?
Well, Satan cannot create anything because Satan is time. Chronos. Time has no properties. Space has no properties. Time and space, Chronos and area, time and space. Their son Zeus is the creator. He is the demiurge, because Jupiter Zeus is Jesus. And that is Thor. And Thor, who also has, Arthur has 12 knights, same as Jesus has 12 disciples. So what you have here is the trinity of Kronos, Rhea, and Zeus. And Jupiter is his other name. That is where Thor comes from Tur, Jupiter. Tur is Tor, which is torus fields, which makes torsos. So your torso is a torus field, and it's blue shift, and at the bottom red shift, and that's what all atomic energy is: red shift, blue shift. So your torso is a torus field, and that is the creator. The creator is Jupiter, because he creates torus fields. It's the only god, the Sun, Father, Mother, and Son, Kronos, Rhea, and Zeus. It's the only god, the god of form, that is the creator, because time creates nothing, space creates nothing. Time and space are inert. They are not things. They are not autonomous entities. They don't have properties. They have attributes. So they can't do anything. Time can't do anything. Time can't act upon anything. It's like your shadow. Your shadow cannot do anything of itself. It can't walk away from you and build a house because it's your shadow. When the nighttime comes, it disappears. It doesn't even have light at night. So that's what time and space are. That's why Kronos had to be castrated, because he was eating all his children, because time eats all his children. And so the moment anything is born in time, it perishes. But in order to remain and to exist in a timeline, what had to happen was a principle had to be born from time and space which could enable bodies to exist in the time-space continuum. And that principle is Jesus, Jupiter Zeus. Jesus. He is the Word made flesh. In other words, torsos are flesh. Without that word, without that cymatics or sonoluminescence, nothing would exist, because time can't make anything, space can't make anything. Only Zeus, the Son of God, Jesus, can make anything. He is the flesh. He is the Word made flesh. See, this is what it means. The Word is sound, sonoluminescence. Flesh is matter. For matter to exist, there has to be one principle, and that principle is Jesus, the giver of life. Because time doesn't give life, nor does space.
Wow.
That's why Zeus castrated his father. Bang! No more cojones, daddy.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And especially when you were saying red shift, blue shift, I understood it on a physical, sort of visceral level. So that's really cool with the Taurus and Jupiter and all of that. But then so Satan is like nothing then. I don't know. I don't understand then what went wrong. Why did it get so evil? Who are these people who are, satanic and Luciferian? Like what is wrong with them?
Because the whole idea of time, space, and matter is a departure from source. For instance, if you've got a piano sitting in the corner, it's not making any music, but it has, by being silent and still, it holds the potential to make any tune that you can possibly imagine. But it's not doing it. It's still. Until you go there and you press a key and make a vibration, it's not going to do anything. So our lives are considered to be like a song. That's why we're living in a universe, in one song. And so our body in this universe is singing a song. And when it's born, it grows, then it decays and declines, and then it dies. And the energy goes into a new form. So that song, because it's not stable, your body is not stable. From one day to another, you look in the mirror, you're changing every day. I notice when I look in the mirror every day, I change from the day before.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning and, wow, I've changed. Because we're constantly changing. Therefore, that's the illusion.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they don't see the change. Only after decades, oh, I've got a wrinkle. Oh, I've got grey hair. I'm changing. And they're so slow that they don't see the change every second. Every breath you take, you are changing. You're transforming, transcending. Everything. Everything is energy, and it's in flux. And so that is considered evil because you can't preserve it. You can't, like a photo. Sometimes, oh, let's take a photo. We need to save this
moment.
this moment. Yes, click. And even the photo, the moment you have it in your hand, it's getting old and decaying and changing. And so you can't preserve any of it. You just have to go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing by force. That's evil, because evil means wave. The wave form. The sin of Eve is the sine wave.
Oh, wow.
So when Adam and Eve fell, it means they fell from cause, unconditioned, unlimited, to effect, conditioned and limited. Limited bodies. You have to eat, drink, poop, wee, sleep, survive. Not many people like all that. Some people don't like eating. They become breatharians. I don't like eating.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I enjoy eating when it's tasty. We all enjoy eating, but we don't like to eat.
Yeah.
You see what it's doing in the shopping centres? People are getting hurt. They're getting stabbed for a bit of toilet paper or the last cucumber on the shelf. That's a condition. People need to eat. They need to sleep. If you don't sleep, if you don't eat, if you don't rest, if you don't have love, emotions, affection, sex, people suffer without these things. Well, those are conditions. Well, how do you get unconditioned? Well, you withdraw from the physical senses, you activate the super senses, and you begin on a path of weaning yourself off all these things that you think you need. You know, you don't need 3 full meals a day. That's a lie. They say you can't go 3 days without drinking. That's a lie.
That's a lie.
They say you can't go 30 days without eating. That is a lie. I've gone 62 days without eating solid. So,
wow. Yeah,
there's many, many lies that are being perpetrated and perpetuated in this evil system. And evil is the wave, because the waveform is where decay begins, in the wave. The moment you strike your piano key or your guitar string, the moment you strike that string, it vibrates and creates waves, sound waves. They are decaying, no matter how beautiful they are. Drum, you strum a beautiful chord, drum, and it's beautiful. But the moment you hear it and it hits your ear is the moment it starts to go back into the silence whence it came. Mm-hmm. You can't strum the guitar and expect that beautiful chord to sing forever. It's not going to, because waves are temporal. They are finite. They are not eternal and infinite. They are temporal and finite, and you are a wave. Your body is a vibration made of atoms called anatomy.
Anatomy.
Yeah, so your tommies, your atoms, they are waves. And so that is evil, because waves only exist, or rather, let me be more accurate, vibratory waves only exist in the material temporal world. Vibrations do not exist in the transcendental world. Radiation waves do, not vibratory waves. A vibration, vibra comes from abra, vabra, abracadabra, or Abraham, or abraxas, or abrasion. Vibration is abrasion. This is abrasion. And abrasion is what causes electricity. So this is to be avoided. The waveform world, the material world, it's a fall. So when Adam and Eve fell, naked, because there are no bodies. Well, there are, but they're called transcendental bodies. They're not physical bodies. They've got a transcendental form. You can perceive them, but they don't have any solid vibration to them. So that's what evil is. It comes from the word vibration and wave. Vibration wave. It's a satanic wave because it's red shift, blue shift. Red is Satan, Lucifer, and blue is Jesus, the good energy. Red shift, blue shift. It's proton, electron. Protons are red, hence the word pro means red, and L, electron, denoting electricity, it's blue shift.
Wow.
It's a compressing left-turning wave. Blue is, and red is right-turning radiating wave. Radiation, gravitation. So this is gravitation, blue shift, chakra, and radiation is red down.
I'm taking notes. So with our senses and our, addiction to eating and our conditioning to do all of these things, we're sort of further trapping ourselves almost, or at least further. It's almost like we're going further into some sort of, I guess, trap. Yeah. And so to get back out of that, I mean, that's a lot of what various traditions promote, is a sort of release from the senses, or a sort of detachment, or like a, sort of like rescinding your identification with your sensory information. And is that sort of in line with what you are saying?
Yes. So the more lusts, addictions, desires you have, the more entangled you get in this world. So our role is to disentangle. So the more things you want to do and achieve and taste and sense, all sense gratification, it's all the lower senses. They're just fleeting. We don't need to chase after experiences. Everything is an experience. You will learn. You don't have to learn the hard way and go in and experience and touch and make the same mistakes as everybody else. So to disentangle yourself from this vibratory, noisy world, one needs to go within. Yes, to answer your question, we need to simplify and go within and connect with the God that you are within, because you are so that's the wonderful nature of humans, that we are gods and that we are Almighty God as well, just that we're not Almighty God in quantity. We are in quality. So, but quantitatively, we cannot say we are God. We can say we are God qualitative. We are exactly the same substance as God. There's only one thing. There is only God. When people say, oh, there is no God, or is there a God? My answer is, there is only God. There's nothing else. Nothing else exists. Only God exists, and you are God. And everything that has an atom in it which vibrates and pulsates is God, because all is atom, all is atomic.
It makes sense to me. Isn't there something in Egyptian lore and history where we used to worship or venerate or say Atum, and then it changed to Amen? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Amen. Yep. Amun is that's what Amun is.
Is the
So
what?
Atum is the hidden Atum.
Okay.
Amun is the hidden Atum. It's talking about black light. Black light is hidden because it has no color. White light is apparent.
Yeah.
It's what we see. You can't see black light. You can see when white light appears, you can see objects. So that is Atum. Atum is white light, Amun is black light. So Amun is really it should be all is Amun, because everything comes from the dielectric field of the hidden one. So that's what the word Krishna means, the hidden one, the black one, the dark one. And so that hidden one is in reference to black light. It's the source light. White light is the force light. Magnetism is a force. Dielectricity, black light, is not a force. It's an acceleration. It's inertia. It's not motion. You've got force and motion, inertia and acceleration. So black light accelerates, white light forces. When they say let the force be with you, they're talking about magnetism. That's the force. The source is more powerful because it is the potential, black light.
I love that.
So we come to the source. We are forced into bodies. That's magnetic. It's a pulse. And then the result is the effect of an electrical body. Your body is electrical. All atoms are electrical. The electrochemical processes going on in your brain, chemicals are a result of electricity, electric behavior. People who get dopey in the brain, it's because they don't get out in the sun. They don't do solar gazing. They don't do grounding and earthing. They don't eat whole foods. They eat processed foods. And what happens is they start getting multiple sclerosis because their nervous system is now getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and it's not evolving. Our purpose here is to evolve our nervous system, to grow a 13th cranial nerve through proper sexual practices, through proper diet, through meditation, yoga, chanting, through all sacred modalities. It's the only way to disentangle from the flesh and death and suffering. People are lustful and desirous rather than loving and appreciative. You can turn lust into love. You can turn desire into appreciation. If you desire your neighbor's home, that is evil. You can appreciate your neighbor's.
Uh-oh. I lost you there for a second. I don't know if you're...
Sorry?
Oh, I
Can you
couldn't
hear
hear
me?
you for a minute, but I know on the video it still comes through. I just didn't hear what you said, but
Okay.
but when
All
you're
right.
talking about the 13th nerve, that we're trying to create, I have so many questions, and I actually don't know how much time you have. Do you need to go soon?
I can do another, say, 20 minutes.
Okay. So the 13th nerve, is that related to the sexual practices that we learn in various like tantric traditions, or I know in like some Gnostic traditions you're supposed to, for example, bring yourself to the sort of verge of orgasm and then not orgasm, refrain from orgasming, or is it a different sort of sexual practice that you think is the way to go? And am I correct in even associating that with the growing of the 13th nerve?
No, that's it.
Okay.
You're correct. And that's the sort of stuff that I'm teaching. It's called White Tantra.
White Tantra.
So, yeah, White Tantra. Black Tantra is ejaculatory sex. That's the left-hand path.
Okay.
That leads to eternal damnation. Anyone who willfully ejaculates can rest assured that they will never ascend. Probably never. They may one day ascend after many, many cycles of reincarnation, but not this life, no chance. Because that's called crucifying the Christ. Because the sperm and the ovum, they need to be retained. They have the nutrients and the materials to develop the nervous system. If you squander those, like the prodigal son, in left-hand path ejaculatory sex, you are murdering yourself, you are crucifying the Christ. That fluid is what gives you charisma. And if you have no charisma, well, then you're a little deadbeat coward that doesn't stand for anything and falls for everything, aren't you? Because you've ejaculated your brain out like Cullen Smith and become stupid. You know, these are people who go teaching young boys how to practice Black Tantra and is the Pied Piper leading them into eternal damnation. All these young men who think it's so cool. And all they're doing is supporting the venereal disease industry, abortion industry, and contraceptive industry. I will never support those industries because they are superfluous, redundant, and not necessary. All you need to do is teach boys how to have implosion, long-lasting orgasms where none of your brain is depleted and none of your fluids are expelled, where you crucify the charisma and absolutely blaspheme against the Holy Spirit, because it is the Holy Spirit. What other fluid can pass life on that you know of? It's the Holy Spirit, because only the Holy Spirit can give life. So why would you be willy-nilly having loose partners and ejaculating all over them, all over the world, and getting people pregnant, and then you have to, oh, sorry, dear, I didn't mean to get you pregnant. I'm an ejaculator. I'm incontinent and incompetent, like Cullen Smith. So now we can just go ahead and abort it, can't we? It's absolute depravity. And for a start, how many of those young boys get depressed and suicidal after they've had an ejaculation? I know I did every time I did. I was like depressed. I'd have arguments with my partner. I would be irascible. I would be unreasonable. I would be angry, bitter, depleted, tired, chronic fatigue, until 2012 when I decided not to. And absolutely that all turned around. I have no guilt, no shame, no nothing when I have sex. It's because it's pure. And I know my nervous system is growing, and I know that I'm becoming more conscious because I am aware of how valuable these practices are. So beware the false prophets. I've already mentioned a couple of them that are out there teaching Black Tantra. These people themselves look dead. They look depleted. They don't have any charisma. They talk like this, and they think they're teachers. There's no passion. There's no real charisma in them anymore. They're just dead, soulless, vomitous vampires who are teaching black magic, unsuspecting that life and death is in the sperm. That's the warning. There is life and there is death. And two practices that were introduced by the satanic Jesuits in the Inquisition: ejaculatory sex and murdering animals and eating their putrefying corpses. These, in this part of your body, you are ingesting death, and then down below, you are ejaculating life out of you and practicing the science of death and eternal damnation.
Wow, and that's it's like a double inversion. You're like supposed to be putting life here and getting rid of death down there.
That's what they did. They did this about 300 or 400 years ago. Before that, people were not eating animals. People were much more conscious in the kingdom of Tartaria, and they left animals alone. They didn't persecute and exploit animals like we do now. Pigs, every day we have to have some pig bum. We call it bacon, and we drink it with our cafe latte. Oh dear, would you like a slice of pig's ass? That's what we're having for breakfast. We're eating a pig's bum and cow
Yeah.
bum with red wine. Oh, let's have some rump steak.
Mhm.
Oh, this is delicious, isn't it? And yet they have to hide the stench of putrefying corpse, these zombies, with condiments, oils, salts, herbs, peppers, onions, sauce. Cook it. You know, if you were a lion, fair enough. A
Yeah.
lion can just jump on an
Yeah.
animal and start eating it. How do
True.
humans jump on rabbits and start eating them? They can't. They need weapons to kill it first. Then they need knives, forks, pans, ovens, fire, matches, oils, condiments. Why bother when you can just walk under an apple tree and go, pick, munch, munch, munch. I
Yeah.
don't need to eat for a couple of days because I've got all the minerals and vitamins and nutrition. The tree lives forever. I can just pick its fruit. I don't have to salt it. I don't have to sweeten it. I don't have to get a knife. I don't have to get a fork. I don't have to cook it. I don't have to find electricity to persecute it and burn it and kill its enzymes. You just go, pick, bite, pick, bite, just like a lion does when it jumps on a deer. It jumps on it and eats it. If you can't do that with an animal, and that means you shouldn't be eating animals, if you need knives and forks and all sorts of persecuting equipment, if you can't do that and digest it, because you can't digest any meat, it putrefies, and only the parasites eat the meat, because you see these big-bellied flesh eaters, they're all full of parasites. It's the parasites doing all the work. It's not their digestive system.
Yeah.
The only thing they digest is the vegetables that they have with the meat.
Mm.
You see? So people have been deluded. They're satanic. Eating flesh is cannibalism, whether it's
True.
sentient beings called animals or whether it's humans. These are satanic, vampiric cannibals which will be condemned to everlasting damnation. Even if you have a bite, even if you eat a fly, you can go to hell, according to the Buddhist system. And even if you step on a fly, let alone eat an animal, how gross have we become? How deviant and how degenerate that we have to steal the lives of animals because we need protein and iron.
Yeah.
Well, you can get 2 times as much protein from a piece of broccoli than you can get from a piece of steak. And that steak would have been appreciated where it was on the cow's bum. The cow needed its bum. Humans don't need to eat their bums. So what I say to flesh eaters who say, oh, I love my meat, as if it's their meat, I say, well, you are 2 things. You are a bum and you are a corpse, because you eat dead corpse and you eat bum. You're a
Yeah.
corpse and you're a bum. And that's what they are, all of them. And even the teachers who teach, oh, don't go vegan. It's a UN agenda, and they're trying to make men into, little girlies by making them eat rabbit food. Well, I'm no little girlie. I've been a vegan for 12 years, and I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And
Right.
I will get healthier and sexier by the minute. And I'm watching people. Tomorrow I turn 57 on the 24th
Oh,
of March. I'm
happy
watching
birthday.
ugly people who eat flesh and corpse in their 30s dying of bowel cancer. They've got piles, arthritis, rheumatism, dying in their 40s, 30s, 50s. They're wrinkly. I don't have any wrinkles, thank you very much, because I don't eat bum.
Yeah. Wow. Well, happy
So
birthday.
stay
That's
with not a
amazing.
bum eater, because then you're not a bum. So I like to rub it in, because I get people every day writing to me, telling me how important it is to eat flesh, Santos. You're looking skinny. Well, thank you very much. I'm the syncretist. I'm the one that knows syncretism. And how I got it was through vegetarianism. Bum eaters will never get this syncretism. They will never know diddly squat, ever, because their consciousness has been dumbed down to the level of an unconscious animal. The moment you have any particle of animal flesh, you have been dumbed down to a satanic, ignorant level. Stupid, probably forever.
Wow. And
Mm-hmm.
do you think these people who are then eating even worse, I would say, babies and humans are then, I mean, are they, they're clearly like reducing themselves and not able to be their full selves and conscious. And so are they being, do you think they're being animated or used by other entities that are kind of coming through those vessels that have been made into nothing?
Of course, the moment you eat a bit of cow flesh, that cow's DNA is now in you. You can't deny this. If you sit there and go, oh no, that's ridiculous. Well, it's not. You've just ingested cow animal DNA. That transmutes, that translates into their frequency, possesses you. They now own your ass. If you eat ass, you get your ass owned by the flesh that you eat. And then, but see, this is where they get smart, these flesh eaters, because they're so stupid. They say, oh yeah, but now you're a vegetable because you eat vegetables, and you're fruity because you eat fruits. No, it's the minerals that are digestible that we get from plants and fruit. You can't do that with animals. You cannot get those minerals. It comes from plants. So what you're getting is you're getting mineralized. Your consciousness is getting electrified. Because why? Simple. Because plants digest. Animal putrefies. Whatever digests is what then is transmuted. See, digestion is metabolization. It's a transmutation process. So whatever plant you ate, it transmutes into human consciousness. Animal, because it putrefies, you don't transmute. It's useless killing an animal and eating it, because you've done yourself harm and you've done the animal harm, because that animal was learning and growing and also living out its role, and so it can experience what it had to, so we can go to the next level. When you kill it, you ensure that it reincarnates again and again and again, and you keep it locked in this system. It's wanting to grow. So because you cannot digest the flesh, it won't transmute, but it keeps you in the state of animal fear, because now you are a killer. You are practicing murder, and all scriptures say, thou shalt not murder.
Yeah.
You do not murder anything. You don't kill an animal, even if you need protein. You don't do that. Even if you're going to die, you don't take another animal, a life. You don't do that. You die first. That's the true way of a dignified being. You die before you kill anything else. But the greedy, lustful way is, oh no, I don't want to die. I will kill to keep myself alive.
Yeah.
I will murder that animal so I can live, because I'm more important than an animal. No. You don't get to decide that, sweetheart. It's not your job. It's not your meat. It's not, I love my meat, because it's not yours. It belongs to the animal.
Well, and I think we're kind of trained into, I mean, we're obviously trained into that, but I think we're trained at an even deeper level with these stories of people who, like the Donner Party or whatever, where they're trapped in the winter and so they have to eat each other. And it's like, well, they didn't have to. But now we're being told that not only should we, kill and eat anything, we should even kill and eat each other if that's what's necessary, because that's how you survive. And it's like, well, you're going to die anyway. So do you want to die having had this experience of eating your family? Like, that's crazy to me, but these are like the stories that we're sort of told, when you're in this dire situation and you're like stuck in the woods or whatever, like you're going to eat another person. It's like, I've always been like, I would never, ever do that. I'd rather kill myself if I was like that crazed that I couldn't stop myself from killing a human and eating it. It's insane to me.
And think about what would the breatharian say, who's sitting there watching you murder something just so that you can survive for another 2 minutes and then die after you murdered someone else. You've survived for a couple of days and then you're going to die anyway.
Yeah.
And you're going to die with guilt on top of that. And there's the breatharian going, oh, well, there's a stupid idiot born every day, isn't there? These are people who love to reincarnate so they can come back here and eat and poo.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's sewage farms everywhere, and people, they've got 10 toilets, 10 bathrooms now in their new homes. Oh, yeah, no, because we've got to do a lot of poo. We eat
Yeah.
so much corpse, and we love our toilets. In Japan, they're so proud of all their multi-buttoned toilets. One
Yeah.
squirts you like a, and cleans you, and the other one pulsates you, and
Yeah.
you can do this. You can get a rub, you can get a tickle, you can get all kinds of squirts, and they spend like $40,000 on their toilets.
Yeah.
They make it like a shrine to their poo habit, and
Right.
and they love collecting this poo in sewage farms, and then they make burgers out of it, and they have more poo, and so they can do more poo.
Yeah.
It's like
The
it's
poo
like
cycle.
check out my toilet. We've got 10 bathrooms in this house, and they're all tiled and got marble in there, and that's where we sit and do poo. I mean, wouldn't you rather be a breatharian where you don't have to sit on the toilet ever, ever, ever again and smell the stench of some carcass-eating, corpse-eating zombie who just took just unloaded their corpse out of their pile-ridden backside, and they push all that corpse. No wonder they've got piles. They've got to push cow bum out their ass into the toilet. Oh, these poor people. Go and call up a breatharian, folks. If you think you have to murder an animal, just call them up. And there's liquidarians. There's frugivores, fruitarians. There's people who only eat apples, and they survive 20 years, and they're happy, they're sexy, they're conscious, they're beautiful. They're only eating apples. You don't have to murder things with a face on it, that does poo. One thing I'm never going to eat is something that does poo, like a rabbit, a chicken. People go and get chicken wings and chicken breasts and chicken bum, and they're eating something that does poo. I mean, apples don't do poo, so have apples.
I love
I
it.
like that thing because there's this couple of guys who repeatedly send me emails about flesh eating. They think they're so smart. They won't send me any pictures of them to show me how ugly they are and how big their parasite-full bellies are. I mean, I'm 57, and that's my belly.
Wow.
Sexy as. Thank you very much. So I'm the one who stays intelligent and sexy and has no wrinkles and has the best syncretism in the world. And they're trying to tell me that I should look like them with all their wrinkles and their fat gut and their cancer and headaches that they get and arthritis and diabetes. And you need your meat, Santos. You're skinny. Thank you. Thanks for the advice, corpse eater.
Yeah.
Thanks, bum. Continue being a bum, because I ain't no bum, and I ain't a jackass whisperer.
And you're very happy, obviously, too. And I always think it's interesting when people are trying to give someone advice when they're clearly well and happy and aren't looking for the advice. It's like, well, why would I change what I'm doing if what I'm doing is working perfectly for me? And I didn't ask for your advice, but that's interesting that they feel the need to consistently assault you with that.
Yeah.
But talking about that cycle that, you're forcing other beings into when you kill them prematurely, and then also you're forcing yourself into by, being sort of indulged in these more base actions. And you framed it as, the way you said it was that you're forced into this body. What do you mean by that? Is that what you mean, that just that karmatic sort of response forces you back in, or is there something else going on?
Well, when you go to the white light is magnetic, and white light is what creates space and magnitude for living bodies to exist in. So when you go to the white light, you come back into incarnation, it's called. And when you go to the black light, you go back to where there is no lack. That's what the black means. It's where you have to go back, because it's the still light. If you want to not reincarnate, you must go to the black light. It's the source. And that's where stillness is. White light is force and motion, and it will force you continue in body, in form, form is in atomic waveform is what I'm trying to say. So white light is responsible for that. Black light is you hear of black holes, dark energy, dark matter. That's all dark. It's black. So because
Mhm.
they know that is the source, that is where everything comes from. That's the potential. The power is the white light.
So we're constantly told to go towards the light, and that we should, when we die, we're going to see the light, and we should go towards it, and all of our families there, and all the good things are there. But in reality, we should maybe like turn around and go the other way.
Yeah, look, it's not bad light, but it's just
Yeah.
about reincarnating. You won't go back to source. You'll just have another life. It's not bad. It's an option. And most people who take the white light option, they're not ready for the black light. And
Yeah.
so you don't want to tell them anyway. It's no use telling them saying, let me just get rid of that. It's no use telling them to not go to the light. It's no use, because they wouldn't, even if they had a note and said, don't go to the white light when you die,
Yeah.
don't. And then they see the white light, and then they see the note, don't go to the white light, they will still go to the white light, because they're compelled to. It's compelling. It's something that they have to do knowingly, and that's
Yeah.
how we got here, Lindsay. That's how we got into incarnation, because we knew we had to. I know that I had to come here and help others, because that's all I do. And I've done that since I was a little boy as a Jehovah's Witness, with very, very few years where I wasn't doing that, probably 7 or 8. But I was knocking on people's door, serving Jehovah, trying to save people, being very zealous, always preaching spiritual things. Well, now I'm doing it correctly, because
Yeah.
now I'm a synchronous.
You had the right urge, just not the right like pathway.
That's right. So, but that's all I want to do, and that's all I do.
And we're very grateful for it. Will you, as we're closing things down, tell people where they should go to connect with you or find more of you, or get into whatever you are offering coming up, if there's any projects you have or any of that sort of stuff?
Okay, so what I'm doing is, what I have is 2 sites. My YouTube channel is Mr. Astrotheology, Mr. Astrotheology, one word, and my website is universaltruthschool.com. And that's where you'll pretty much find all my material. And Facebook is where I publish everything that I'm doing. I've been doing a lot of lives here in Mexico at all the temples, Teotihuacan, Tepoztlan. At the moment, I'm in Oaxaca, right down south. I filmed an equinoctial celebration on the 21st. Last night, I filmed a Temazcal, which is a sauna sweat lodge of tradition, where they bring in grandmother rocks heated up and put seawater on them to mineralize the sauna. And I did that. It was about 3 hours. It was a really long process. 4 saunas, 4 elements. The first one was earth, then water, then air, then fire, and you transmute all of those. And it made me feel really good. I had a really good night of sleep last night. It was excellent. Wow. So I'm filming that, and that's on Facebook. Some of those videos will be live on my YouTube channel, but if you really want to keep update with me, you just have to follow my Facebook and just go on the timeline there, because that's all I've got at the moment to let people know what I'm doing.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. I'm really glad that you are doing all of that and get to take part in it. With an idea or concept or some words of wisdom, some advice, what would you say to the people as we're closing down?
I would say, know thyself and go within. Meditation, be alone, be still. You don't need, if you're single, you don't need to go looking for partners. If you are with a partner, get into a routine or a habit of meditating together and doing spiritual things, the correct things, and being on the path, disentangling yourself from lusts, addictions, and vices, and all these things. Free yourself, and you'll never get coronavirus, and you'll never have to worry about coronavirus, and you won't be getting the vaccination, and you won't be so stupid as to follow along in this fake war against free humanity, the Inquisition. Do not bow down to the Inquisition. If you're going to be a martyr, if they're going to make you a martyr, go for it, because you go straight to heaven. You will go to the highest realms. You will go to Vrindavan, Vaikuntha, Brahmajyoti. You will leave these planes behind forever. So look forward to that if you have to be a martyr. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. Have no fear.
I love it so much. Thank you. Fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to Santos Bonacci. Santos, thank you so much for sharing with us today. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Lindsay. Take care.
Thank you.
See you next time.
You too. See you next time. And no one can say what will come next. Even the smartest supercomputers and the most brilliant psychics are screwed as far as scrying the future. But we can take all our most rational observations and balance them against all of the data that exists, and still completely unaccounted for, incredibly impossible seeming random chances, as strange as a bird dropping a crumb into CERN's machinery to halt its progress, can fall into our lap and change absolutely everything forever. So never get too bogged down in what you imagine for the future. Your imagination of the future is actually the gambit that no one saw coming, friends. So pull that tool out and use it. And until you master yourself and all of these acts, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.